ancient covenant was renewed, it could be amended to fit a new situation that affected one or both parties, but everything not otherwise specified remained in effect exactly as before. Some provisions were made for those who were still in exile, but they were meant to only be temporary stopgaps. Having a few days of grace doesn't mean we don't have to pay the rent once we have enough resources to do so. That Yahweh may forgive past ignorance and tolerate our missteps while we try to learn to walk again is a far cry from permission to totally disregard many of His commands. Grace is more like amnesty granted to an offender. He's allowed to come back home again a free man, but he has to start obeying the laws of his nation again. The apostles knew it would take time to make the transition back from living like Gentiles, and they made allowances for the returnees to do that gradually. In Acts chapter 15, they decided not to burden them with too much too soon, one reason the northern kingdom had separated from the Jews in the first place. But the apostles also expected them to learn the rest of the Torah week by week in the synagogues. The view is toward getting to where we no longer need special interim measures. Yahweh Himself said that keeping the Torah is not out of our reach. Christians are right in saying the Torah cannot be completely kept by any one person. But it wasn't meant to be. It assumes the context of a community in which to live it out. And together it can be done. What Yahweh wants most is a people among whom He can make His home. The term church has long obscured what Yeshua Himself called His followers, the ones who are called out. But to come out from paganism only leaves one in a vacuum unless he also comes back into the commonwealth of Israel. And again, that means responsibility to the covenant to which your ancestors agreed at Mount Sinai. Some people got the idea. Here in the world's oldest remaining synagogue atop Masada, you can see how the original design was for congregants to face each other, because the fruit of obedience to His Torah, when we understand its spirit, will always be to love the rest of Yahweh's flock. Anyone interested in knowing Yahweh could come into the outer court of the temple, but that low inner fence prohibited all non-Jews from entering the actual temple courts. This was a reasonable measure. It was put in place when the Greeks defiled the altar, as we remember at Hanukkah, another festival Yeshua attended. But keeping all Gentiles out oversimplified the distinctions that Yahweh had set up. Isaiah tells Yehuda to open the gates so the righteous nation may enter in. Most rabbinic writers believe that this refers to the return of the lost tribes. But this law added by men was now unwittingly screening out those who were returning from Ephraim. So this is the wall that Paul said Yeshua had figuratively broken down. But many resisted this new factor, and because this one diseased part of the house was not removed according to the Torah's instruction, the disease spread and the whole house had to be taken apart stone by stone, not one left upon another. Jewish tradition says the reason the temple was destroyed was because of the baseless hatred so many who were part of the same family had for one another. But as archaeologists sift through the physical rubble of the ancient temple, they're now able to isolate stones that were actually part of the sanctuary itself, suggesting that its destruction was only meant to be temporary. When Yeshua said a time was coming when people would not worship Yahweh at this location, He never said that was a permanent arrangement. He gave other prophecies that required there to be a temple in place once again. Those the Torah designated as the true priests are thought to be the ones who settled here at Qumran, boycotting the corruption now rampant at the temple, where the Romans even sold the high priesthood to the highest bidder. This is what documents like the Book of Hebrews and the Dead Sea Scrolls were opposing, not the sanctuary itself, which was Yahweh's own idea. Also, the temple as Ezekiel describes it has never yet been built, so offerings will once again be brought to Jerusalem